Let Neptune strike ye dead, Winslow! Hark! Hey guys, what's up? It is the Culture Detective here, investigating your favorite movies, and this is technically the first movie that I've watched this year very early on, and finally I can watch this movie, and that is The Lighthouse by Robert Eggers, also co-written by Robert Eggers' brother, Max Eggers. And I am so glad that I watched this movie because this movie is a masterpiece. And I had high expectations before going into this movie, and I was satisfied going out of this movie, even though I totally didn't expect what I was getting. But it's directed by Robert Eggers. It is his sophomore movie after his debut, The Witch, released in the year 2016, which is one of my favorite movies of 2016. And it is this very slow, demented, weird, sort of psychological horror fairy tale. And while yes, it's very refreshing and very artistic for a horror film, there's just something missing in it. Not only is it that it's a kind of slow paced, but also it isn't as gratifying, and it didn't reach the mental heights that I wish it would reach. But we have The Lighthouse, which totally fulfilled that and maybe exceeded that even more, because The Lighthouse is a movie about Robert Pattinson's character, aka Ephraim Winslow, this young, angry person who is just bored. And then we have this old guy played by Willem Dafoe, whose name is Thomas Wake, who is the more knowledged, the more experienced, the more powerful lighthouse keeper, and both of them are stationed to be on an island guarding a lighthouse for 4 weeks. And two guys in a lighthouse island far off the shore of New England in the 1890s. And of course, both of these characters, they go absolutely insane, batshit crazy, and insane things just happen. And I really don't know how to talk about this movie without spoiling much, but it's really best to go into this movie without knowing what's going on. And the reason behind why I was so excited about watching this movie, and that this movie is one of my most anticipated movies of the year, is because of the trailers. They are fantastic. They are really well edited, and the music is haunting. The editing is great, and it just looks very stylish and artistic, yet demented and insane. And going into this movie, I was exactly expecting that. And going out of the movie, I was I was a little surprised because it didn't go the way like I thought it would be. I thought it's going to be just adrenaline pumping from start to finish, but there are actually a lot of slow moments in the film. There are actually a lot of scenes where it's just Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe having a conversation, and their first conversation is a little hostile, but for the second and third conversations they had in the movie, they start to get friendly, they start to get along, and it's really the second scene where they were around at the table talking is the scene that sort of explains their backstories, what's going on, why is it bad luck to kill a seabird, the backstory of Robert Pattinson's character, who was a timberman before up in Canada, but now went back to New England to, I guess, be a wickie, aka a lighthouse keeper. And we also see more of Thomas Wake, whose backstory is a little ambiguous. But of course, given how claustrophobic and dreadful it is being on a rocky island that is so small and being only with one guy, of course, both of them go insane in very different ways. And there are two other elements in this movie that really make this movie special, because this movie is about power struggle. Obviously, in the beginning, Thomas Wake, the older, more powerful guy, is more powerful, and he would command Robert Pattinson to do this and do that, and you're not doing this good enough, and you're not doing that good enough. You've swapped the floor, and you didn't do anything of the sort. You need to swap it again, and swap it 10 times more. And Robert Pattinson was like, dude, I was just trying to make a living here. Why are you treating me like a slave, like a dog? I ain't no dog. And this movie also explores in themes of fairy tales and fantasies, like the previous Robert Eggers movie, where Robert Eggers sort of explored witches. And in this movie, he sort of explored mermaids, except he didn't go as deep. Well, mermaids or sirens, back in the era as it's called sirens. And other than mermaids, we also have seagulls, who are apparently who apparently carry the souls of previous lighthouse keepers who died, and also some weird visions like this sea monster with long tentacles, and yeah, tall tales, but very, very disturbing ones. And to get into the technical stuff, this entire movie is shot in black and white, and because it is in black and white, and on The Witch it has colors and it's very pale and pastel, but on this movie it's straight up black and white, monochrome. So the entire movie really relies on light, and it's immaculate here. The lighting and the staging of a lot of the shots in this movie are absolutely beautiful. The usage of lights and shadows, it's just beautiful. And also this movie is shot in the ratio of 1.19 to 1, which is a really special ratio, which makes this movie feel like a horror movie or a thriller movie back from the 60s or the 50s or even earlier on. And the dialect, the English being spoken in this movie is also really, really weird, like the New England, Northern English, Shakespearean English that's being used in The Witch, except I don't think it's really that accurate. I think Robert Eggers made it easier for the actors to pronounce and for us to understand. But in this movie, it feels way more accurate. We essentially get some 19th century old American English, where it sounds like a mixture between Northern Irish and sort of pirate sailor lower class English, and this dialect is really, really tough to hear, and they use words like wiki and tall tales and stuffs like that. And I whilst watching the movie, I actually downloaded the script for this movie so that I could follow along. What are they saying? I don't know why, but Robert Eggers just have this fascination for fairy tales and New England, like New England and weird English dialects and accents. But still, I think this feature just makes this movie even more eccentric, more unique, more artistic, more stylish. Thus, I enjoyed the experience even more. And so, there are a lot of scenes in this movie that are just two people talking, having a conversation, and a lot of people think this movie is boring because of that, and a lot of people didn't like this movie actually, so it's a very polarizing movie. But for me personally, I really enjoyed the dialogues in this movie. I think every single conversation is golden. It's just so well written and so well performed. Robert Pattinson probably gave his best performance ever. Same goes for Willem Dafoe. I'd be pissed off if they don't get nominated for Oscars. They really gave insanely amazing performances, really ferocious and menacing on Willem Dafoe's side, and very insane on Robert Pattinson's side. And the dialogues in this movie, they are fantastic. They're actually really, really entertaining. Not only do we get the power struggle element of the dialogues, but also it's like Tom and Jerry. In Tom and Jerry, you sort of see these two characters just chasing around, fighting around, and you'd get entertained by it, even though it really isn't anything. And then we have the dialogues in the Lighthouse, which I think falls in the similar criteria where it's really entertaining, even though the conversations that both of them are having aren't really all that important or epic or anything. There's always this tension in the atmosphere, which leads to my second point, um, to why I love this movie a lot. The tone and the atmosphere of this movie, it's dreadful. I mean, being stuck on a rock on an island, it's claustrophobic. It's constantly raining and storming. We're constantly being blasted by fog horns and thunderclaps and weird screeches and machines just chugging and seagulls sort of screeching, and we're being constantly tortured by that for 1 hour and 40 minutes straight, and it's dreadful, a little depressing actually. And towards the end of the movie, when the edits started to get strange, it starts to get trippy and weird, and us, the audience, go insane along with Robert Pattinson's character. And even though this movie can be really dark and disturbing and creepy and even scary, but also what really impresses me is that this movie is a fusion between psychological horror and dark comedy, meaning that there are actually funny moments in the movie that actually cracked me up, and it's such a great, just smooth, brilliant fusion between these two polarizing genres. Robert Eggers and Max Eggers are actually geniuses. We have a lot of farts. Robert Eggers is not above a fart joke. Willem Dafoe really had scripted farts in this movie. His goddamn farts! And also we have the scene where they get pissed drunk, and Willem Dafoe went, "Dance, Winslow, dance!" And Robert Pattinson started dancing. That scene was insane, and he went faster and faster and crazier, and he was mumbling words at that point. Both of the characters were just demented, outright demented. This movie is just packed with amazing scenes. We have the whole "you don't like me lobster, ain't ya?" scene, where they were just arguing about if Robert Pattinson likes Willem Dafoe's cooking, and they started off with what, and they were just screaming what at each other, and Robert Pattinson went, "That's the problem with you," and Willem Dafoe went, with you, no, it's insane. And then Robert Pattinson, because he was really bored, and it was dreadful, it was like shit and piss and puke and semen and farts on that rock. Robert Pattinson was like, "I want a goddamn steak. If I had a steak, I would fuck it." And Willem Dafoe was just really offended by it, and he was like, "You don't like me cooking?" And Willem Dafoe just stood up and performed one of the best movie monologues I've ever seen, the Neptune monologue. In years, film schools are just gonna study this epic monologue, because this is so well written. The words, the vocabs, they're insane. The monologue, it's so epic and dramatic, and Willem Dafoe's delivery of the monologue is so ferocious and menacing. It is one of the best scenes in the movie. "Let Neptune strike you dead, Winslow. Hark!" And then the thunder just claps, and it's just insane. And it's almost like Willem Dafoe was performing a very epic Shakespearean monologue, except it's not Shakespeare. It's Eggers. And wow, and of course we have just them going super duper drunk and hungover at the end of the movie, to a point where they ran out of booze and they started drinking turpentine mixed with honey, and they go absolutely insane. And then we have the masturbation sequence, which is really well edited and crazy and just emotionally distraught and inhuman. And then we have the mermaid being washed up on the shore scene, and the screech of the mermaid is haunting. It's scary, it's frightening, yet it isn't threatening, but it's this weird phenomenon that came out of nowhere. And towards the end of the movie, after Ephraim Winslow decided to reveal a secret, the movie just suddenly escalates and becomes super trippy and weird. We have just why just spill your beans, just these echoes in the hallways of the creaky, strange house. And then we have the ending, which is just, oh my gosh, the ending to this movie is straight up haunting. It is traumatizing. It is haunting. It is so extreme. I didn't think it's gonna go this extreme, but it is that extreme, and it's just oh my gosh. And then at the end, the last shot, it's just what what the fuck, what the fuck, and it just makes you think. And I love a horror movie that makes you think. It just sticks in your mind for a while, for a very long time after watching the movie. Not only so, but the characters, they lose track of time in the movie, and it just starts to be very disorienting and very strange. And then in a very trippy sequence in the movie, there's even an identity crisis where people, their faces change, their shapes and forms change, and it's just very psychologically challenging, very traumatizing, very weird, and I was really confused, but also really entertained and at awe at the same time. And yeah, there are so many great scenes in the movie, and I really, really love this movie, and I just really, really want to talk about the spoilers in this movie, so I'm just gonna give a spoiler alert. So, at the second half of the movie, 4 weeks were finally over, and Winslow and Wake, they packed their stuffs and they waited for the tender, aka the boat that's gonna take them back to the New England shores. Except the boat didn't come, and then suddenly Thomas Wake revealed that they had already missed the boat for a long time, meaning that they have already been there for more than 4 weeks. And at that point, me and the characters and the audience of this movie completely lose track of time, and everything starts to be really weird. Like, does time even exist? Do they even exist? And then there's this scene where Thomas Wake said to Winslow that, maybe Winslow's just having a huge hallucination up in Kennedy, in the middle of a blizzard, and maybe everything wasn't real. And it was just super confusing. It's almost like Lost or Mr. Robot, where existence and time, it just doesn't matter anymore. And then, of course, in the middle of the movie, we get this scene where it just came out of nowhere, and it really shocked me, where Winslow basically grabbed a seagull by his neck and just smashed it over and over and over again at a rock until it splats with blood. Not only does it show the violent and angry side of Winslow and the fact that boredom makes men to villains, but also this seagull has one eye only, and it keeps on bothering Winslow for some reason. And then at the end of the movie, Winslow only had one eye as well, meaning that Winslow basically killed himself, or maybe Winslow was on the island twice. There were two timelines, and Winslow sort of experienced it at the same time, where Winslow already died in the first timeline, and then he sort of woke up again, except his died self sort of haunted his alive self, and yeah, it's really, really confusing at the end, where Winslow finally, I guess, tried to bury Thomas Wake alive, except Thomas Wake wasn't really dead. Swung an axe at Winslow. Winslow grabbed the axe and literally split Wake's head open. And yeah, and then he grabbed the keys and he went up to the lighthouse to finally see the light for himself. And he saw the light, and the Fresner's lens, it's called. I looked it up on Wikipedia. It's called the Fresner's lens or something. There were some doors. Like, there was a small door, and it just opened up really elegantly and smoothly. It's almost like we're being transported to somewhere heavenly and forbidden. And we get this very mesmerizing shot where Robert Pattinson just stares at the camera with strong lights at his face with blood smothered all over him, and he reaches his hands into the lens, and then it gets super duper bright suddenly, and he just screams of pure joy and fear and terror at the same time. It was so extreme. We couldn't even hear his scream because the lights were just so strong. And we just see him just screaming, and it was just very extreme. And then the next shot, he fell down the steps of the lighthouse, broke his leg, and then the final shot where he was dead on the island, naked, being picked by seagulls, having one eye only, which is really haunting. Makes me think that he didn't even kill Thomas Wake at the end. Or maybe he did, but only on the first timeline. But in the second timeline, he somehow dies. But then in the second timeline, if he dies, then he would have been a seagull. And that seagull sort of is in the second timeline, so it doesn't really make sense. And some people see this as a sort of a clever play on what happens if Prometheus and Proteus meet. Prometheus being Ephraim Winslow or Thomas Howard, the guy who stole the light, stole the fire, and was eternally tortured, now stuck in a loop. And we have Proteus, a very deceptive god at the sea. And yeah, I think it's a really plausible explanation for this. But I think it's a little more than that. I really don't know, but I feel like there's more to that. It's more than just a power struggle, just a very clever play in Greek mythology, just an inspiration of Edgar Allan Poe, or this little Welsh story about two crazy lighthouse keepers. So yeah, overall, I really love this movie. One of my favorite movies of the decade. The performances are great. The shots in this movie, the scene where Willem Dafoe shoots laser eyes, that scene was like, it looks like it came out of a painting from the Romance era, except at the same time also looking like a 50s, 60s thriller movie. It's very mesmerizing, hypnotizing, strange, psychologically traumatizing, and it is one of the best movie experiences I've had in years. So yeah, I love this movie. It's great. It's mind-blowing, and honestly, I am giving it a strong 9 out of 10. It is that good, that great. Yeah. Have you seen The Lighthouse? From 1 to 10, how much did you rate it? Like if you like it, hate if you hate it, and subscribe if you want more, and thanks for watching.